Hey everybody, welcome back to part 2 of our Diecast review as we go through all the generations in my lifetime. Again, I'm being very specific, in my lifetime, the things that I've watched since I started collecting Diecast. But we're going through Xfinity Series Diecast today, so we already went through the trucks. There was only 4 of them, so that one was really easy. But Xfinity, we have a few more. So we're going to start with the first season I ever watched NASCAR, which was 2003. This car happens to actually be a 2005, but it's close enough to count. So this is the first Xfinity car. This is a Busch Series car at the time. However, the Busch Series and the Cup Series ran the same car at that point. Basically, the chassis and everything were the same. Maybe a slight motor change, maybe a slight change to some other thing like a spoiler or something, but otherwise they ran the same exact stuff. So we got a trunk open, got roof flaps to pop open, and then we have the engine right there. Just like that. So pre-2005, they did not have the opening roof flaps. Post-2005, the ARCs had opening roof flaps. But basically, I mean, that's all there is to really show, because that's a standard ARC from the Cup Series, and the Xfinity Series is the exact same. So no changes between the two of them. They are the same. Okay, now let's move to the next part. So that's the ARC. Well, guess what? They also had Xfinity Series Elites, and they had Xfinity Series Elites up until 2016. But this one is a Gen 4 Elite from 2006. It's just Dale Jr.'s Daytona win, but the point is they made a 2006 Elite for these cars. Now, a fine note, 2006, they had metal rims. They changed from metal to plastic in 2009. So 2008, you will have metal rims. 2009, you will have plastic rims. Another thing about these, starting in 2006, they had this antenna hole on top. Actually, I think it was 2007, or midway through 2006 is when they started adding the antenna hole. Because they were not in 2005. It had to be somewhere in 2006 is when they started adding the antenna hole. So there's an antenna hole in the roof. That is a midway through 2006 change. The little prongs here on the back, or the spokes on the boiler, that was a thing the whole way. These chrome ones are specific to 2007. And there were, before that, there was, actually this is a 2006 car, so maybe it's a halfway change again, but 2004 they would have these as well, but they were just a little bit different looking. They were more like a plastic, and they were gray instead of chrome. So another small change. Another thing about the Elites for the Gen 4 era, you get these metal plates across the grill opening. Again, Cup and Xfinity doesn't matter, they're the same. We also do have 2 tethers and a brace inside the fuel cell there. We also have 2 tethers. See if I can get this. There we go. 2 tethers inside the roof flap. It's actually in both roof flaps. Now, these roof flaps were the ones I was talking about when I did the Elite Premium. These can get a little tricky. So you just have to kind of inch them down, because sometimes they like to get all wedged and stuck and be a problem for you. And then we go to the immaculate engine detail, because this stuff was awesome all the way through 2008, I think, was the last year they had these Gen 4 Elites in Xfinity. I can't remember any of them newer than that, where they were the Elite Gen 4. But yeah, 2 tethers, 2 braces, all the engine hoses and wires, the belts, it's all in there. Just a ton of detail there. We also have, let's see, that'll close. Flip it to the bottom. We've got the DIN plate here on the back, functioning and movable rear suspension. So I didn't show this, but the rear suspension does bounce. Front suspension moves. So that is exclusive to the Elites. The fronts will move on the ARCs, but not the rears. And then you can see there's all the undercarriage detail between them. So if I go ahead and just lay this on its side up here so you can see it from a distance, there's one. And there's the other. So that's kind of what you're looking at for the differences between the two right there. So you can see one of them has a significant amount of detail, especially here in the rear. That's where you'll see the biggest chunk of detail difference. Up front, they're fairly similar. You can see a couple more details up there on the front side, but otherwise they are very close. They aren't crazy different. Like I said, plastic wheels on the ARC, metal wheels on the Elite, at least for this era of car. So yeah, that's pretty much the differences between the ARC and Elite from that era. That era would pretty much span from 2003 all the way to 2008, I think is when or actually it was 2010 was the last year they ran these cars, and then they kind of upgraded to a COT body. So yeah, that's the 2 variations. Now there is one other variation. It was only done in a very specific couple sets of cars, very late. 2009, 2010 is when they started running this car. And this one I'm going to show you real quick is this is the Bristol sweep set, Kyle Busch, but this is all plastic. You can actually see it looks kind of the same. It looks the same. That's plastic. So it looks very similar up front, plastic all the way around, no trunk opening, no roof flaps opening. So there's a lot less detail with this one. Plastic window net, you also don't get that. It does have engine detail, so let's go ahead and pop that open real quick so we can take a look at it. Gotta just poke it in there so I can get that hood open. Oops, So there is the engine detail. It's much, much simpler. So you can see there is a lot less detail in that engine compartment than there was in the Elite or even the ARC before. And you can see another thing, you'll notice the hood is one solid piece, and so it doesn't stay up. It just falls right down. You'll notice if I go back to that 2005, the hood has the proper hinges right there on the side. So it's a much cheaper diecast, and I don't remember them doing many of these. I know Casey Kane's number 43 car with the petty colors on it that he ran in an Xfinity race at some point. Or a nationwide race, whatever. That one has the plastic chassis, and like I said, this one is another one that has the plastic chassis. And so there's obviously a notable car because it was the sweep set car. But yeah, so it's plastic, very basic interior as well. I didn't get to the interior on the last one, but there are a couple very similar things. If you look down inside there, you'll see that little red wire on the steering wheel of the 8. That is a radio wire. You'll notice also these metal braces across the windshield. And then over here, you'll notice those aren't there. The little radio pieces are all normal, and then the shifter is white, the little white shifter knob. That one's just a standard looking shifter knob. So yeah, there's some differences to the interior. There's more than just that, but that's just the easiest ones you can see kind of right off the bat. I'm trying to see if I can get to maybe any more. It's hard to get these window nets off of here, but yeah, pretty tough to see. But the Elites here on this one has seat belts and some other details like that. So there are a couple things, some black interior bars, but yeah, for the most part, the Elite obviously has significant detail. So you have 3 different variations, 2005 to 2009, or 2008, they kind of ran just these 2. 2009, they introduced this cheapy one. I don't know if any Elites or standard ARCs were getting made at that point because the Cup Series hadn't been making them, so I think they may have just toned off that tooling and kind of turned it into that and only used it for plastic. So anyway, that's the Gen 4 era of the Xfinity cars. So those are the 3 variations you'll find out there. Easiest ways to tell the difference. If you're looking at an eBay listing, look for roof flaps. If the roof flap's open, it's going to be one of these 2. And then the only way to check to see if you're getting this one versus that one, look for the trunk. If the trunk doesn't have lines that looks like it'll open, you're getting one of these 2. Roof flaps, you're getting one of these 2. But if it doesn't have roof flaps and doesn't have that, you're getting the plastic one. So that's kind of the way to tell the difference between them on those cars. So we're going to move on to the next step on these, and that is going to be in 2010. 2010? Yeah, 2010. Huh. Interesting. That is interesting. So 2010, I could have swore Kyle Busch's sweep set was 2010, but also 2010 must have been they did a partial schedule because this is another car from 2010. This is the first where they kind of got that Car of Tomorrow body in. Big splitter down below. Big Impala logo. Obviously, this is a very notable car because it's the Dale Earnhardt Jr. number 3. So that's obviously going to have a little bit of weight to it. But yeah, the main factor on this one, that one's an Elite. I just want to show some of the details with it because we did unfortunately lose some of our details off of the Gen 4, but we still got some pretty good detail overall. So let's get right into it. So we do have a big change was the rabbit ear spoilers. You'll see we have 2 spoilers there. You will also notice there were 1 antenna hole up there at the front, right at the tip of the number 3. They went to a single antenna hole here, very similar to like the 2011 Cup cars or 2010 Cup cars, basically any of the COT. So this is it's based off of COT. So if you look underneath, we have a bumper bar. That was a big addition when they went to the COT. Obviously the din plate. So very similar undercarriage. You'll notice these little wires here. Those are transmission lines, but they were specific and new to the Car of Tomorrow when that came out. Another thing is I believe the window net on this one doesn't come down, but some do. Let's go ahead and pop open the roof flap there. So you can see that. There we go, set those back down. And then you see nice big open trunks. You can get in there pretty good, but 2 tethers and a brace were the detail on that. And then we'll have to get this open here on the front. Try and get that hood to pop open. There we go. And there you see the engine detail there. Very similar to the ARC from 2007. So the little less engine detail maybe than the Gen 4, but the next gen, or I can't keep saying next gen, but the car for this generation, which was the COT, this was actually the Elite detail for the COT. So this is very similar to a 2011 Cup Series COT. This is exactly the type of shape and stuff. Major changes is just the spoiler, different nose shape. They had a different shaped Impala nose. This one's, like I said, much longer spoiler along the front, or much longer splitter around the front. And then, yeah, as far as the detail on the interior, it is much closer to the ARC from 2005 than the Elite from 2007. So, yeah, this is the Elite. The ARC is actually very similar, just no braces and tethers, less detail in a couple spots. No functioning rear suspension is a big one. That's only in the Elite. So now we move to the next generation of this. And this generation is kind of a twisted generation, I would call it. So this is the generation of ARC and Elite. So very similar to the one I just showed you. The only difference is in this generation, they added the Camaro. So we get the Camaro. We also get the driver's side mirror here. So I'll show you the main differences between them. But this is 2014, and this is styled more like the 2012 COT Elites that ended the COT reign before they went to the Gen 6 car. And I'll show you the main differences as we put them side by side. This change happened in 2014, I believe, is when they made that upgrade. I don't think it was 2013, but I can't remember any 2013 Elites, honestly, in the Xfinity series. I can't remember a single 2013 Elite. So I think it was 2014. This is where the most of them are, because there's a couple Kyle Larson Elites, a couple Chase Elliott's, there's a Ty Dillon. There's just more 2014 Elites for this one. So let's go ahead and show you what I'm talking about. Biggest thing you'll notice right off the bat, or one of the things I noticed, that one has a black windshield bar. This one has a white windshield bar. This one doesn't have as much detail along there on the dash. This one has more detail on the dash. So that's just the first thing I see when I kind of look at it. Long splitter here, long splitter here. Okay, that's all good. Nothing there that would surprise me. You can see the hood hinge on both. You can see the hood hinge there, and on the back. So nothing changed. Rabbit ear spoilers, okay, that's the same. So the main differences that you would see to try and tell the difference between them, which they're both Elite. But like I said, right here, we'll get right up next to it, but there's the driver's side mirror. That's an exclusive thing to the late 2012 Elite Cup cars and 2014 to 2016 Xfinity Cup or Xfinity Elite cars. The roof flaps still have the tethers. The trunk still has the braces and tethers. Everything's kind of the same there. There are 3 antenna holes on the 2014, 15, and 16 Elites. So that is a kind of a unique thing that they added for just those cars. Before, of course, Xfinity made a whole rebrand just like the trucks did. But yeah, there were a couple of other things. If I look underneath, you'll notice we got the bumper bar here. We've got the whole rear suspension. You got the whole front suspension there. Very similar, actually, on the undercarriage. Not a lot of differences down there. Most of the differences are going to come up here. Like I said, you can get that window net down fairly easy. We do have that mirror. I'm trying to look. I don't see the seat belt, so that was not in either of them as far as I remember. And yeah, that's kind of the main differences that I see between the two is, like I said, the mirror is a big one and the center post. Those are the 2 easiest ways to spot between the 2 that you're looking at. So if you're looking at one on eBay, you're not sure what you're looking at, you're trying to figure out, well, is this the one I want or not? Those are kind of 2 ways you can tell. Look for the antenna holes on the roof. That'll be another thing. So if somebody's listing a car with a black post, a side mirror, and 3 antenna holes, and they say it's an ARC, it's actually an Elite. And sometimes you can get some good cars that way. They're usually in the wrong box, but hey, the car's still good, so I'm good with that. Okay, so now we're going to move on to the last batch, which is the most recent stuff to come out, starting in 2016 and 2017. The first one I'm going to show you, this is Eric Jones' Bristol car. Now this is kind of like the truck series. They go to a much more simplified design, and by doing so, they can make a lot more cars. And by the way, they have. 2014, I think they made like 3 or 4 Xfinity wins. They made Chases and Larson's, and I think they made 5 to 6 total Xfinity wins. 2016, 2017, when they introduced this style, they make 10, 12, 15. Now you usually can get over half the season's race wins in Xfinity. So they definitely make more Xfinity cars now, especially due to the fact that the Cup Series doesn't use the same mold as them. It's harder to get those made, so that's kind of how they've gone. But let's go ahead and show you. So this is the 2015 Xfinity car. What are the big things? No opening trunk, no roof flaps, plastic window net, plastic body underneath, very basic, all plastic down here. Now it does have an opening hood. You can see very basic and simple details for the engine, but that's all you get. You do get windshield banners, so that is something that, you know, some of the cars didn't used to have that they did add later on. No posable wheels either, so it is a very simple standard rolling chassis style. The seat is actually white. You can't really see it in there, but the seat is white. So there's definitely some detail to be added. If you wanted to get a paintbrush out and get some paint, you could easily up some detail on these with relative ease and make them look a little bit better. Typically, the wheels are not painted. The race wins are exception to that. They do paint the wheels on these because, of course, it's a race win. They got to do those extra details. So yeah, overall, the biggest thing about this generation, and I'll get into it a little later, was a big problem they had, and I'll show you the next one too. This is a 2017 car. This is the major update that they went to in 2017 was they changed the spoiler from the rabbit ear down to the standard short spoiler. But other than that, it was basically the same body. They just made a small spoiler update. As far as I can tell, I didn't see any major changes. They may have updated the splitter area here. Let's get nice and close here. So they may have updated the splitter area here and just made it a little bit skinnier. You can see there's the Bowman one. There's the Eric Jones one. You can see the splitter. Let's look at it from the side. So you can see how much kick that splitter over there has. A little less kick on this one. So they may have done that as a small update going into 2017. But these are only 1 year apart. So very small change. It could just be the Chevy looks like that. But a complaint I always had with this, and I still hold on these cars, we'll get it zoomed in, but they had a pretty good gap. There was always a sizable gap. Let's show you my screwdriver here. We'll show you how much gap there was. So I can just stick this screwdriver right under here. You can see how much room there is. A lot of ground clearance on both of these. Now this one's a little shorter, but you see I can still get under there. Like, oh, sorry. You can't see that. But you can see I can still get this screwdriver to slide under here. You know, there's a good chunk of clearance here. Before it really starts to do anything. So the cars always, in my opinion, from this era, which was 2017, 2018, they sat too high. They would sit high, and they looked a little bit goofy, because here's the other thing they did. If you look at it from the wheel wells here, there's a gap. And the same thing I'll explain from the other one. Take a little screwdriver here, and look at that. I can literally like fit it in this gap relatively comfortably. It's a little tight, but I can fit that in that gap. So they didn't sit quite right. If you looked at it from a distance, let's go back to one-time zoom. From a distance, it doesn't look terrible, but it definitely looks like it's up on top of the chassis. It doesn't sit down right where you'd want it. So in 2019, they made a change. They went and updated some stuff. I think it was 2019, maybe it was 2020. But they updated some stuff, made a change. Here's the new Camaro. They also updated all the other ones, but you'll notice if I take that same screwdriver that I was using before, and it stops immediately. Look at how far. It only goes that far before it gets stuck. So a much lower front end. Now, that's actually not as low as it should be because this has no rear tires on it. I don't know why. This is a bad example. Should be sitting up about like this. So much, much lower on the front end of this car. So that was a change that was very welcome. I thought it looked so much better because the rest of the car is the same. The chassis, they retooled the nose of it. They retooled, I think they may have retooled the whole car, but the retooling really helped make the car look better. Because the other thing you'll notice is the wheel. Let's take that same screwdriver I was showing you earlier and show you how much gap there is in here. And I can't even get it in there. So they fixed the gaps. Basically, they got the tires to sit right inside the wheel wells, not as much gap there, and they got the nose to sit a lot lower. And like I said, this is actually supposed to sit about like this because I have no rear tires on this because this is one complaint I'll have with Lionel forever is if a car blows the rear tires off, please give us chewed up tires. I don't like the car sitting like this. That's weird. Have it just sitting there sliding all over the place. So anyway, that is kind of up to date. This is what our newest cars look like all the way up until today. Obviously, they've changed some shapes. We've gotten little slightly different versions of the Ford and Toyota noses since then. But that's really the changes they've made is between those is they've kind of just updated the noses and made them look accurate, but we haven't really seen any major tooling updates as far as how they sit and how they ride and kind of all that stuff like that. So obviously, let's go ahead and pop this back up before we close out the video. Obviously, my favorite is going to be this 2014 Elite. I love these Elites. Obviously, Chase Elliott won a bunch of them in these metallic Napa blue cars, which looked incredible. Obviously, the Gen 4 car, as always, is just an absolute like winner. I mean, these cars look so good. The metal rims, everything about the Gen 4 car is just awesome. I mean, the detail is incredible. And then, like I said, this car, there's only like 2 or 3 that's offered. Some notable ones, though. I think there's a Kyle Busch Mexico car that was made with that and some other ones like that. So there are some out there. You just have to keep your eyes open to make sure you know what you're bidding on if you try to go find one of those out there in the wild. But yeah, those are kind of the different variations. It's really all I had to show today. I wanted to just get kind of some of that info out there. As I said, I'm getting prepared to do the Cup Series video, and we're going to go through a lot of Cup cars, so I'm going to have a much bigger plate of cars to look at. But yeah, my favorite of them is obviously going to be that 2014. I love that generation of car. By the way, I love the COT version of that car too. I always thought those were really cool. So there's only, let's see, 1, 2, 3, I have 8 of them here, so a little more than the trucks, but I've got about 15 to 18 of the Cup cars to show off as soon as I'm ready. So anyway, guys, I hope you've enjoyed the video. Thanks for tuning in. Let me know your favorite generation of the Xfinity car in the comments below. But other than that, guys, thanks for tuning in. This has been Race Craze, and we'll see you in the next one.